In India, sex has always been a topic that's been discussed behind closed doors by giggly teenagers and even adults. Things are changing now though. In what's being seen as an urgent need to create awareness, there's a proposal to unravel the mysteries of sex very early on, as early as the 6th class.
एक पल में प्रश्न कितने पूछता है मन युवा दिल ही दिल में सपने कितने पूछता ये मन युवा.
Adolescents form 1/5 of the country's population, and it has been felt that they need special attention as far as overall developmental issues are concerned. Also, around 35% of the HIV positive people fall in the category of 15 to 24 years of age. And the government, to deal with these problems, has come up with a special solution.
So in a unique initiative to facilitate sex education in schools, the Delhi government has framed the Adolescents Education Program. The program that would be imparted to children from class 6 onwards will educate them on their physical and mental health. The government feels that under this program, children will find answers to questions that they are not comfortable asking their parents or even peers.
3 बच्चे हैं, एक बच्चे के जो है मूछें नहीं आ रही तो वो किससे पूछे, या कोई बच्चों को सिगरेट जैसी आदत गंदी है तो उसको कैसे नो करें. तो इस तरीके की जो है अवेयरनेस बच्चों में फैलाने के लिए ये प्रोग्राम है.
But Delhi is not alone in launching this initiative. The program will also make it to schools across the country. It is designed in such a manner that it would serve as a guidebook to healthy and safe life. One of the major components of the program, therefore, is sex education.
To be making them aware of the severe, dangerous, critical complications of drug abuse, of sexual health, neglect, behaviors, indulgence, of anger, of mental health issues is the country's responsibility.
The debate is not about whether there is a need for sex education or not. The questions being raised are what is the right age to give this information and what is the right way to do so.
However, there are certain portions in the program which the teachers have objected to. For example, the fact sheet handed over to teachers reads that though sex gives pleasure, one should not indulge in it before marriage. The handbook also talks about pregnancy and ways to prevent it through the use of condoms.
They say here is an activity, a boy and girl, they are naked. So how do they feel? Then what is the difference between beauty and handsome? And again, what is the urge of the boys and girls? This is what they say, and say masturbation means hastamatham is not so bad. This is what they drive to teach to the students, which is diverting their energy, and really they will become sexual daredevil.
But despite objections, the government has been instrumental in providing training to teachers to handle a taboo subject such as sex. How far it proves to be a success would be known only once it is put into practice. With Ravinder Bawa and Zoya Ahmed Hussain in Delhi, Sulekha Madan, Headlines Today.
So the question really is, if we teach children about sex in class 6, are we forcing them to think about things which they really should be thinking about later on, or are we acknowledging changes in society which are really upon us, and it's high time that the people who make this syllabus wake up and acknowledge that fact? That's the topic that we'll be discussing over the next 40 odd minutes, and for this we are joined on the line from New Delhi by Usha Ram. She's the principal of the Lakshman Public School. She's joining us, and that apart we have NK Ranjani. She's a biology teacher at the Salwan Public School. She's with us in our Delhi studio. We also have Mrs. Ruby Dugal. She's a parent and mighty concerned, I might add. Her daughter's in the 12th standard currently in St. Anthony's School in New Delhi. We also have Amritanshu Kar, who is a 11th standard science student at DPS Vasant Kunj. Let's just first go across to Usha Ram. Mrs. Ram, what's your first take on it? Can you explain to us the rationale behind wanting to teach children about sex in class 6? Is it a tad early, as many parents are saying?
See, please understand the meaning of sex. You see, when CBSE is talking about the comprehensive health program, they are not just talking about sex. We are talking about personal health, hygiene, know yourself, your body, how to, the touch, bad touch, good touch. It's not just about sex. I don't know why we are taking in a wrong sense. It's basically knowing things in a systematic manner. In any case, children will know either from this side or that. There's so much of exposure all over. There's so much of explosion. They get to know wrong things. It's better to give them right kind of information through right people or through experts. You know, for example, we get people from Modi Care, from Johnson & Johnson, or from people who are coming, psychologists, from Wim Hans, from NIPSED. They talk to children. So that's more important. Let's not talk about that class 6 and we are talking about sex. I'm sorry, no. It's not that. It's basically to make them understand about themselves, about their body, whether it's to be allowed to touch, not to touch, what is good, what is bad, how to look after yourself. There are many other issues along with that.
Right.
It goes on naturally.
Mrs.
It's not
Dugal,
only
there's
one
so
area
much
and we get
satellite
stuck to
TV
that.
now. Children are seeing so many new things and they're seeing them at ages far younger than they would ordinarily. Why then would you as a parent object to sex education in class 6?
Well, as it is, I feel that children are losing their innocence too early, and it's becoming day by day embarrassing for parents to sit and watch television together because there is so much of exposure. And if they start, teaching them, introduce it to their curriculum in such a young age, they will not realize that these are certain things that should not be talked or allowed in front of everybody. They'll just come rushing and they'll ask question, embarrassing question in front of everybody. Instead of that, I feel that, after a certain age, maybe 8th or 9th, I think so far as I know, they are still being taught from the class 7th or 8th.
That's right.
So what needs to be done is probably counsel them. They don't need curriculum for that. What they need is counseling, basically, from the parents as well as the teachers, and they can introduce counselors in the schoolrooms and the classes. Even the teacher can encourage them to ask questions and ask them whatever they want to know. They can satisfy their curiosity, and basically the parents who should be counseled, they should be called in the schools, in the PTM. They should be counseled that you need to teach your children certain things at certain age. You should tell them about good and bad touch. These are the things I think it should be done between parents and children, or at a one-to-one basis with the teacher, maybe in a smaller group or something.
Alright, Amritanshu, as a student yourself, would you think it's better for you to speak about these things and to discuss them with your parents, or is it better to have it in a more structural format?
I think it's better to speak with my parents, with my teachers and with the counselors. I believe it should be one-to-one interaction between the parents and with the teachers, because just having it in a book and reading it in a jiffy won't solve the problem. We won't just read out the whole thing for the sake of it and get to understand each and everything. I think major thing should be to interaction with the parents or someone who's very knowledgeable, like doctors, psychologists. I think that would make a much more impact than just in the books.
Ranjani, as a teacher, while it's easy for parents to say that this is a topic that they're disturbed by and not quite comfortable discussing, as teachers, we've heard lots of reservations coming in from different quarters about teachers finding it difficult to explain to children, finding a huge amount of resistance within themselves to be able to communicate these things effectively with their students.
Yeah, I agree to some extent that this is true, but things are changing now. Not all teachers are like that. Teachers have to be open enough. They have to be counseled. Teachers also need to be counseled so that they can come up and broach these subjects. So it is the teacher's point of view, the way she broaches the subject, how she makes the student comfortable. That's all makes the difference.
Right, so what's the right way to approach this topic? How can the teacher make the class comfortable, and is the classroom, and especially the 6th standard, the right time to be beginning sex education? Is this something that our syllabus is now acknowledging the change which is happening in society, or is sex education being forced upon children? We'll continue this discussion on the other side of a very short commercial break. Stay tuned to Sex in the Classroom. Well, this really is what this controversy is all about. This is the Yuva School Adolescence Education Program. It's a handbook for teachers. It's been prepared by the Department of Education, and it's meant to teach young children about birds and bees and about sex. The question that we're really wondering about is whether class 6 is the right time to be asking these questions. I'm opening page 33. Headlines today is an exclusive copy of this textbook which will be introduced or is being introduced from June this year. Let's just take a look at some of the questions that this book wants teachers to address. Do you think missing a period is always a sign of pregnancy? Vomiting, which is morning sickness, which is often seen in the movies, is it a definite proof of pregnancy? I'm just reading out some questions from this textbook. Do you think sexual intercourse between men and women always results in pregnancy? Not being married, is it a protection from pregnancy even if a girl indulges in sexual intercourse? NK Ranjani, these are right questions to be asking for sure, but is class 6, when you're just about 10, 11, 12 years old, is that the right time to be asking this question?
I agree that the kind of terms that have been used in the book are not the correct ones at class 6 level. That without using explicit terms that are mentioned in the book, a teacher can go about explaining the students about the basic anatomy. So I agree that these terms can be avoided. The terms that are used in the textbook can be avoided, and then also it can be taught.
Right. Let us also just take a look at some of the responses that are coming in. We read in the books and magazines that if a girl stops menstruating or misses her monthly periods, it means that she's pregnant and a baby is growing inside her womb. Let's go across to Usha Ram, the principal of the Lakshman Public School. When a child is about 11 years old, are those the sort of questions that you want being asked in an Indian classroom?
See, I still feel that this manual is meant only for teachers and for the parents or for adults. How to take it up in the classroom is a different thing altogether. They are not going to ask such questions, I'm sure. No teacher is going to take up like that. It will be taken up it will be taken up in a very systematic manner, gradually, probably by the teachers who are ready or by experts who will be taking boys separately, girls separately. I would not like to say.
I think there seems to be a bit of confusion over here, because it clearly says on page 33 that put the following set of questions before your students, allow them to discuss them in groups of 3. It says, so this is the Yuva program. This is what we're going to be teaching our children from June this year. It says over here, divide children into groups of 3 and allow them to discuss it, and later select leaders who will come out and put the observations before the larger group. These are the sort of discussions that you're now wanting should take place in classrooms across the country.
Not class 6 onwards. This is too much in detail. This should be taken up only at class 10, 11, 12, not before that. That also in form of being responsible, being safe, not in this explicit manner. I'm sorry. I don't agree.
So that's something that now everybody seems to be agreeing, Mrs. Dugal, that the book which is being put forth from this year onwards doesn't seem to be right, because it's got exceedingly explicit graphics as well.
Exactly my sentiment. This is not the right age for our children to lose their innocence and come and ask such questions. I have seen my friends' children also, sometimes they do miss periods. They come and ask the mother about it. Then the mother, if she is worried, after some time she takes them to the doctor, gynecologist. That's the right person to take to. You don't need these things being taught at 6th class in the classrooms. Though you don't need them to be taught like that.
Right. So as a biology teacher, what would you suggest the right approach should be to broach this issue and to actually discuss it, to have a proper discussion, a meaningful discussion, which doesn't get the kids' minds wandering in all directions either?
Now, first of all, this reproductive system has to be taught like any other system. As a digestive system would be taught, as a respiratory system would be taught, as a circulatory system would be taught, reproductive system should also be taught that it is normal and it is absolutely normal. This system exists in both male and the female, and we should start with small the physiological needs and the things that are to be included, not such kind of explicit terms need to be introduced.
But Amritanshu, just looking at it from the other perspective, if I could play the devil's advocate for a moment, with the influx of satellite TV, the sort of information that we have, the sort of movies that kids nowadays are seeing, it's really a bit hypocritical, isn't it, to be saying that kids don't really know all of this, because the fact of the matter is, by the time they get into the 6th standard, they really are well aware of all these facts and figures and terms and terminologies, and it's really perfectly all right for them to be discussing it instead of experimenting, then getting those experiments all wrong.
It's about moral ethics, I presume. Not every child in every family would be aware of it. I think the book is the basic manual for it. like I said before also, there should be a direct interaction with the parents and the counselors to resolve this kind of problem. I know like media is not what it was before. It's like we are seeing more of media these days, a lot of television channels, internet.
So when did you learn about birds and bees?
Well, to tell you the truth, I started learning from not from a very early age, but the basics began when I started reading the book. When I like NCRT, which is our like basic course. Then I got like I wanted some more information, so I started discussing with my teachers, and then with my parents, and then obviously with my friends. The basic thing is that you should go to a more knowledgeable person, a person who has more information about these things, so that to remove all the misconceptions, all the myths about the sex education.
Right, and that's really where it starts from. One thought leads to another. Then are we really increasing the probability of experimentation, or are we actually acknowledging that experimentation is taking place and giving further information so that the experimentation doesn't really go wrong, like some of the things that the Indian cricket team for one has been experimenting with? We'll take a look at some of the reactions that we've got from a cross section of society, from teachers, from parents, from students. That on the other side of a short commercial break. Stay tuned. Welcome back to this Headlines Today special on the Yuva School Adolescents Education Program. It's a new syllabus that's being introduced from June this year. Children will be taught about sex education. The thing that's controversial is that teachers, parents, they're all saying that it's too explicit and maybe it's being taught too soon. Teachers are shy of giving sex education. Students seem to be embarrassed and parents are uncertain about it. Let's just take a look at some of the reactions that we've been getting since the time we started tracking this story.
It was very important to know what the student community had to say on such a debatable topic. We tried talking to many, but very few agreed to face the camera. We could manage to speak to one of the students, which showed the other side of the coin. Let's have a look.
Reena is not the only one. Many school-going girls like her would rather give sex education class a miss than undergo what they call a traumatizing experience.
Because it was a co-ed coaching class, and the teacher too was very funny. He used to explain using very bad examples, like he used to explain a cockroach system with the help of a boy, which was really uncomfortable. So I had skipped the reproductive classes in my coaching.
Most students we spoke to felt that while they are open to the idea of sex education, they would like it to be outside of the school curriculum.
And we need to accept that the society is going up, and it's better to reduce the curiosity, because at this stage the curiosity levels are very high regarding everything. So it's better we talk about this stuff and the children know everything, so that the curiosity levels would go down.
The information that the students right now have, it's in bits and pieces. It can create a curiosity that they'll come to know much more new things about, and they can do experiments with it.
I don't think that this type of education should be given in bits and pieces. I think complete education should be given as soon as possible to every student, because it's an education for life.
Another concern is that of parents who feel left out from the entire education program.
We are already not very open with the kids, and we doesn't want them to be too open. Otherwise, the kids, where they'll go, I don't know. Because in such young age, if they'll start all these things, they'll start thinking about this only. All the studies will go in garbage.
Interestingly, everyone agrees to the need of the hour that children should be educated about the vital signs of growing up. But no one is ready to shed their inhibitions and start spreading the word. With Zoya Ahmed Hussain in Delhi, Sulekha Madan, Headlines Today.
Well, so kids are growing up, and they're growing up much faster than ever before, but the teachers and the parents seem to have huge reservations about whether this really is the right age to be telling children about the ways of the birds and the bees. We'll continue our discussion. We have an entire panel of parents, teachers, principals, students. We'll keep this discussion going on the other side of a very short commercial break. Stay tuned to Sex in the Classroom. Welcome back to this Headlines Today special on the Yuva School Adolescents Education Program. It's a new syllabus that's being introduced from June this year. Children will be taught about sex education. The thing that's controversial is that teachers, parents, they're all saying that it's too explicit and maybe it's being taught too soon. Teachers are shy of giving sex education. Students seem to be embarrassed and parents are uncertain about it. Let's just take a look at some of the reactions that we've been getting since the time we started tracking this story.
It was very important to know what the student community had to say on such a debatable topic. We tried talking to many, but very few agreed to face the camera. We could manage to speak to one of the students, which showed the other side of the coin. Let's have a look.
Reena is not the only one. Many school-going girls like her would rather give sex education class a miss than undergo what they call a traumatizing experience.
Because it was a co-ed coaching class, and the teacher too was very funny. He used to explain using very bad examples, like he used to explain a cockroach system with the help of a boy, which was really uncomfortable. So I had skipped the reproductive classes in my coaching.
Most students we spoke to felt that while they are open to the idea of sex education, they would like it to be outside of the school curriculum.
And we need to accept that the society is going up, and it's better to reduce the curiosity, because at this stage the curiosity levels are very high regarding everything. So it's better we talk about this stuff and the children know everything, so that the curiosity levels would go down.
The information that the students right now have, it's in bits and pieces. It can create a curiosity that they'll come to know much more new things about, and they can do experiments with it.
I don't think that this type of education should be given in bits and pieces. I think complete education should be given as soon as possible to every student, because it's an education for life.
Another concern is that of parents who feel left out from the entire education program.
We are already not very open with the kids, and we doesn't want them to be too open. Otherwise, the kids, where they'll go, I don't know. Because in such young age, if they'll start all these things, they'll start thinking about this only. All the studies will go in garbage.
Interestingly, everyone agrees to the need of the hour that children should be educated about the vital signs of growing up. But no one is ready to shed their inhibitions and start spreading the word. With Zoya Ahmed Hussain in Delhi, Sulekha Madan, Headlines Today.
Well, so kids are growing up and they're growing up much faster than ever before, but the teachers and the parents seem to have huge reservations about whether this really is the right age to be telling children about the ways of the birds and the bees. We'll continue our discussion. We have an entire panel of parents, teachers, principals, students. We'll keep this discussion going on the other side of a very short commercial break. Stay tuned to Sex in the Classroom. Welcome back to this Headlines Today special on Sex in the Classroom. We're talking about the new syllabus that has been prepared and will be introduced from June this year, initially in Delhi and then going forward in other schools across the country. Is it all getting a bit too explicit? That's the reservation that's coming in from the teaching community as well as from the parents. The liberal view seems to be that it's a very good idea. We must teach children about birds and bees. But even within that group, which says that children should really learn about these things early on, there seems to be a certain amount of hesitancy. Let's just take a look at a few reactions.
The Adolescents Education Program attempts to explain to students lesser known facts about sexual intercourse, protection and diseases arising out of unprotected sex. But the biggest question still remains unanswered. Who is going to instruct students in these schools? In most schools, it is teachers who are shying away from the education program.
नहीं, उसमें हेजिटेशन है. अब जैसे पार्ट्स ऑफ बॉडी पढ़ानी है, अब बच्ची भी हमारे सामने आती हैं, बच्चे भी आते हैं, तो उनको हम नहीं पढ़ा पाएंगे. यदि कोई काउंसलर अलग से अपॉइंट किया जाए और जिस बच्चे को प्रॉब्लम है वो उनसे पूछे, तो मुझे लगता है उसका ज़्यादा लाभ रहेगा. मास एजुकेशन देने से बजाय personal education.
Even in a progressive school like mine, there are some teachers who come to me and tell me that, you know, I'm a little uncomfortable with handling certain aspects of sexuality. And I don't blame them, because after all, we all unfortunately have certain mindsets which have been inculcated in us as children, or we evolve with that.
According to the program outline, teachers instructing classes 6 to 8 have been provided a detailed handbook and fact sheet to introduce children to the concept of adolescent education. Students of class 8 will also be educated about misconceptions associated with masturbation and the various signs of puberty, whereas students of class 12 will be educated about the proper technique to wear a condom and what is oral sex.
Some of the teachers informed us that they were forced to attend training programs and that there was no motivation behind it. Though the government is all gaga about their preparedness to impart the sex education in schools.
कि जो टीचर्स ट्रेनिंग में पार्टिसिपेट किया जिन्होंने, उनकी परफॉर्मेंस स्कूल में अच्छी है, स्कूल के डिसिप्लिन सुधर गए हैं, बच्चों को जो है उनमें टीचर्स के अंदर भी जो है एक स्पिरिट आई है बच्चों से परफॉर्म कराने में, वो हम जो है दिन रात का डिफरेंस फील कर रहे हैं.
The program has already run into trouble in Madhya Pradesh and Kerala. School teachers claim that the instruction manual are indecent and that they are uncomfortable talking about sex to students. So much so that they have threatened that if the program is not withdrawn, protests will only spread further. With Ravindra Bava in Delhi, Soumya Menon, Headlines Today.
How to wear a condom and what is oral sex? Is this what children should be talking about in a classroom setting, or is the government going overboard and getting this all wrong? Let's go across to Ravindra Bava. She, along with Zoya, has been tracking the story really closely. She joins us on the line now. Ravinder, what's the reaction of the government? Everybody seems to be saying that the government is going overboard. This isn't the sort of education which our children should be receiving, especially at the age when the government seems to be wanting this education to be imparted. How's the government reacting to these accusations?
Rahul, the government is saying that they are very well prepared for this, which to a certain extent they are claiming because they have conducted training programs in the past 1 year. In Delhi, almost all the school teachers in Delhi have been trained. With the government school teachers had to go undergo a training for around 21 days. It was a 21-day session where they were taught not only about how to deal with kids who are going to ask uncomfortable questions, but also the overall development of the child as to how to handle their mental stress or the trauma which the child goes through, and even because of the suicides increasing, they've been taught about how to deal with those things, then yoga, meditation. So the government is saying that the programs which they have been running across the country, and also there's 1100 teachers have been trained across the country as a pilot project of the National Adolescence Education Program, and these 1100 teachers will then further impart education to their colleagues, and it's going to go on like that. So they are very happy with the kind of training they've given to the teachers, but when we've been speaking to teachers off record, many of them have accepted that they've been going through this training because it was forceful, it was forced upon them. They had to be present, and their holidays had to be cut down because they had to go through these programs. So it was not like they really wanted to go through it or they were keen on discussing these issues. Few of the teachers have even told us that a lot of people, like the private school who had choices, did not come for these training programs. Rahul.
Right, so we have a teacher in our studio, N.K. Ranjani. She's a biology teacher with the Salvan Public School. I'm on page 129, section 8.7 of the Yuva Education Program. It says, I'm a big boy now. It talks about wet dreams and masturbation. How comfortable would you be taking up such a topic in a classroom setting?
I agree that the topics have to be addressed, but not the manner in which the book actually asks us.
So what's wrong with the book in its current form, according to you?
It is very explicit. It is very explicit. Actually, we need to sensitize the students. We need to make them comfortable with their anatomy and not bombard them with knowledge and information which is not necessary for them at this level. Right. Education is necessary. Sex education is necessary, but not the way it has been done.
Let's go across to Usha Ram, principal of the Lakshman Public School. She's with us on the line as well. Teachers are saying that they're very uncomfortable, it's way too explicit. Would you as a principal agree to introducing this curriculum in your school, or would you protest against it?
See, to my knowledge, there is a comprehensive health manual prepared by CBSE, which was prepared with the help of experts, and I was also a party to it. We had taken it up very systematically and one by one, and not questions like this. I personally feel the way I hear all this, it's going to be very embarrassing, but to be taken up in a very systematic manner and not to make anybody feel that you are doing something extra, or somebody was talking about it just now that as if only the person who has a problem. It's not the question of problem, it's the question that everybody is inquisitive, the children are aware of many things, parents cannot deal it, parents have to be counseled, parents have to be taken up separately, boys have to be taken up separately, girls have to be taken up separately, and the teachers have to be trained the way right now I heard the Salwan school teacher talking about it, that it's something about the physiology or all this has to be taken up, or even about the sex education at the senior level. But how, which language, about responsibility, about safety, all those issues can be taken up in a very systematic manner, and we cannot get away from it. The world is becoming small, we have to take up these things, but in a very, very cautioned manner, because ours is a society of value-based, culture-based society, so we cannot really go against the values and take it up in this.
So everybody seems to be urging caution. What then is the way out? This syllabus has to be introduced from June this year. That's a decision the government has taken. What's the way out? We'll continue our discussion and bring you more reports on the other side of a short break. Stay tuned to Sex in the Classroom. What if there were no clothes for anybody? What are the good things about it, bad things about it, and what are the interesting things about it? That's not a question I'm asking you. That's a question that's being asked in the Yuva Adult Children Education Program, which wants teachers to tell children about sex in class 6 and especially class 6 onwards. Mrs. Ruby, as a parent, would you really want your child to be playing such games in class? It says over here it's a game and we're going to have a very fun-filled, humorous activity today in class. Is that the sort of activity you want should be taking place in a school?
Definitely not. Definitely not. I don't want my child to indulge in these activities at such a young age. I want them to be, given knowledge about their anatomy, right? That's true. They need to be taught, they need to be counseled, but at a certain level and from a certain age it should be started, and they should be counseled and they should not be experimenting. And if they start this curriculum, then children will only, they'll be more perverts and they'll be experimenting. So,
will this lead to more experimentation and a greater sense of perversion, or is it just hypocrisy on the part of the elders who talk about these things because they're already happening in any case?
I don't think it will lead to any good, because the book is very difficult to understand. No one can take this as a reference. Second is that it will create more confusion. I believe the one thing, the book is no good. I believe when we are one-to-one counseling with the parents would do better, but not this book.
Alright, it's not just students and parents who are worried. Counselors, psychiatrists and other doctors are might worried as well about the consequences of teaching children when they're so young.
So what kind of a sex education program are schools in the country gearing up for? In class 6, growing up. In class 7, sexual abuse. Class 8, self-awareness. Class 9, conception and pregnancy. Class 10, substance abuse. Class 11, prevention against AIDS. And class 12, consequences of early sex. But while the program covers all the concerned aspects of health and hygiene, it has thrown up some new concerns for counselors and instructors.
The information is being given only as information on intellectual basis, but this is a very sensitive issue. It arouses emotions in human beings. So when these emotions are not dealt with, then there is a conflict, tension, then it can take any form, panic, depression, anything.
Psychiatrists also warn that such emotional issues, if touched upon in groups, could offset an inferiority complex among children. For example, around 89% of girls in the country are anemic, so premature information on menstrual cycles could fester further complications physically and mentally.
That you impart education in a proper way, but to tell them about all these things, these are not normal sexual activities. You are telling them about something which is not considered a normal thing. So I think if the child is very, very curious to know, that's a different thing, but going and imparting such kind of education, according to me, is not justified.
Experts have also sounded off an alert, citing examples of US and UK, where teenage birth rate is on a rise, despite a healthy sex education program in place for years together.
Countries like UK and US have now started a system of school nurses and abortion clinics for teenagers to handle the problem of teenage pregnancies. The question then arises that with so much of information about safe sex being available for these teenagers in our country, are we prepared to handle such problems? With Payal Singh, this is Ravinder Bawa for Headlines Today.
Well, is there a possibility that teenage pregnancies and abortions might rise if we teach children about sex education, and that too in such great detail? Let's go across to Usha Ram. Is that a concern you share? Do you believe that there will be greater experimentation if such explicit details are imparted in class?
I don't think if it is imparted in a proper manner, there is no question, because our country is different from US and UK. We have family system, we have values. So if it is given in a very systematic manner, I repeat, I am talking about giving information in a right manner rather than getting information through internet or through MMS or through SMS. It's better to give information through the right channel, through the counselors, through experts, to the children, whether they want, because they are inquisitive. Let's accept it. And if that is given to them in a systematic manner, I don't think we are going in a wrong way.
And Kiranjali,
we will be in the
children
right track.
are inquisitive, and you're essentially trying to fulfill their sense of desire to know about these things. So why then so many objections?
We need to sensitize the students, no doubt about it. We need to satisfy their curiosity, no doubt about it, but not the way it has been described in the book. This is going to give them more notions. This is going to make them daydream about these things. We need to give them such kind of information which is going to help them to choose the right path and not actually indulge in such acts.
Exactly. Right, Ravinder Baba, given the fact that teachers are scared, parents are exceedingly apprehensive, and children are a bit confused, there seems to be a lot of resentment as far as this new syllabus is concerned. Is this the final syllabus? Is this the last word, or is the government still prepared to consider some changes?
See, Rahul, the first booklet had come out in around 2005, and there has been a revision based on the feedback given by the teachers who went through the training or the kind of hesitations they had. There have been changes made in the syllabus. The new books are under drafting at the moment stage, and they will be then given out to the teachers again, in which there are changes like this made. Like this book would be having nude figures which are presented of the human body, both male and female, for the class 6 students, but in the new draft they have been clothes put on those figures. So it has been toned down to a certain extent, but then they are ready to take it on from here, and if there are more feedbacks like this once it enters classroom, they are open to the kind of change they want to make, but at the moment they are ready to go with this.
Right, so at the moment there seems to be a certain amount of momentum to put the syllabus in place and then possibly consider changes as and when the teachers and the entire education system starts getting some feedback. The entire idea of this show was to let parents and children know what was coming their way, because this syllabus will be introduced in June, and then try and build up a certain sense of consensus about whether this syllabus and the direction that was being taken by the education system, whether that's correct or not. Ravinder Baba, many thanks for very in-depth and informative pieces that you've been doing over the last couple of days. Thanks also to Usha Ram, the principal of the Lakshman Public School, for sharing with us her thoughts. Thanks Amritanshu for pulling time out. No, it's the peak season as far as students are concerned, all the exams around the corner. And thanks also Mrs. Dugal for coming and sharing your apprehensions as a parent, and best of luck to you ma'am for coming over here, and especially you're the one who'll be taking this forward by actually putting this in place and discussing it with your children. We wish you the best of luck and hope that some of the embarrassments that you worried about won't really come in. Ranjini, thanks so much for joining us. So we end the show over here. We will of course continue to track this debate and this entire controversy. Parents are intending to take this up with the schools are intending to take it up with the administrators of the education system. We'll be tracking this debate really closely on Headlines Today, but for the moment, thanks so much for watching and stay tuned for more.